Hey friends, today we're looking at a doctrinal mastery lesson with 3 Nephi 11, 10 through 11. You should have taught a lesson that goes through these verses and talks about the context and some of the content and the principles. And so these doctrinal mastery lessons have the same outline every time. We're going to do three things. So this makes it easy to know where we are and kind of where we're headed. First thing, we're going to spend a little time, maybe 5 minutes, memorizing the doctrinal mastery passage and key scripture phrase. Second thing, we're going to have students practice explaining the doctrine. So maybe 10 minutes here. So 5 there, 10 minutes here. And the rest of the time, maybe 20 minutes, we're going to have students apply the principles of acquiring spiritual knowledge in a real life situation. And so we've just got three things that we're going to look at. We're going to adopt the content of this lesson, but I may share a few adaptations to methodology. For example, let's start with the memorization. We start there. The key scripture phrase for this one is, I have suffered the will of the Father in all things from the beginning. The recommendation is to mark that in verse 11 and then just have them memorized. Now, there's not a lot of ideas in this lesson, but I did find at the end of the lesson when they're talking about reviewing it, an idea that for me, at least, this is the best thing I know how to do, is just rinse and repeat. And so you could write 3 Nephi and you just leave a blank on here. I have blank the will of the blank and blank things from the blank, and have students fill in the blanks. And then if you write this on the chalkboard or the whiteboard, you're just going to keep having different students say it. And after you feel like the class is on board with these blanks, come and erase another word or two, maybe erase a number or two, and just keep doing that. And it's kind of it's repetition. You might think that's kind of boring, but it works well. And students like being able to memorize and succeed. And so praise them as they succeed and let people just give it a shot. You can at the end say, okay, everybody look at your neighbor and quote it twice to them. We want everybody to do it. And you're going to just take about 5 minutes. Make sure though that maybe next class you review it. Maybe do the same thing, but just for 60 seconds. And maybe wait a couple days, try it again. So that's what I'm suggesting for the memorize. We jump quickly to the explain, right in the same paragraph. So we're going to imagine that someone who knew little about Jesus Christ asked you to teach what you know about him. Using the statement of truth key scripture phrase, how would you explain what Jesus Christ did for us and why it matters? If you're pretty active with the memorize and you had students talking, you could actually just have students open their journal and say, I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Would you explain in your journal? And then we're going to have you practice with your same neighbor what Jesus Christ did for us and why it matters, and try to use this 3 Nephi 11 reference. And so they write, so everybody's trying to explain. And then once they're done writing, maybe have them get with their same partner, their same neighbor, and say, would you explain it now in your own words? You can use your journal for notes if you'd like, and give it a shot. If you'd like, after that, you can have a couple students maybe share that you feel would be comfortable with that and could do that. But that's your explain, maybe 5-10 minutes of that. Our last one is a practice application. As you know, we're looking for real life situations. You can adjust these. This one I thought is pretty good with Jessica. Now, because we're going to focus on Jessica, you might want to either have this on a PowerPoint slide or copy and paste it into a Word document and print this paragraph for all your students. My adaptation of methodology is you're going to ask them to do a couple things here. Sometimes, so you could do it in a journal, but if you do that quite regularly, it may not have a lot of excitement. I found that handing students a piece of paper is a simple way just to get everybody involved in an activity. Say, I'm going to give you each a piece of paper. It could have this Jessica scenario at the top of the page, but you're going to give them a piece of paper and say, I'm going to invite you to do 4 activities, and I'm going to time you. Our first one is this. As you know, we always review the principles of acquiring spiritual knowledge. So the first one, you can just say, okay, students, on your piece of paper, can you list the 3 principles of acquiring spiritual knowledge? And you get 40 seconds or 30 seconds to do it. That's it. And so maybe give hints if you need to, but you're just having fun. It's kind of like a quiz or a trivia game, but it's much more simple than that. Activity 2, you might say, okay, I want you to briefly just write 1 sentence describing what each of those principles mean. So what does it mean to act in faith? And so you're going to, but again, time them, make it sound like it's kind of an activity or a quiz, and then you're going to review those. The next one, as we go down a little bit, is you might have students create a chart, and they're going to use Jessica's scenario that you're either displaying or you have on the top of your paper. You're going to make this chart, and so you're going to do it on the paper. So you can maybe do the rest of the front side of the paper. You're going to make this chart, and so you can just go write it on the chalkboard or whiteboard, following others column, following Jesus Christ column, reasons, results, and you're going to say, I'm going to give you 4 or 5 minutes. You're going to use Jessica's scenario to examine the short and long-term results of following others versus following Jesus Christ. And so you're just thinking through Jessica's circumstance. After that, you can create as many activities as you want. With every question, you can say, okay, on the back side of your paper, here's activity 4 or whatever number you're on. How is it helpful to think of Jessica's option this way? You get 40 seconds to write a response to that. Activity number 5 or whatever. In addition, 3 Nephi 11, 10 through 11, what other divinely appointed sources? So you're essentially using the paper and a writing activity to get students involved in answering all the questions that are here. What could Jessica do to increase her faith in Jesus Christ? Think about what you've learned. Maybe write down a thought or a prompting that you might have had in this lesson. All this can be done on the piece of paper. We've essentially just followed all the questions and activities in the curriculum, but we've chosen a method to get students involved. At any rate, you're wonderful. Thanks for teaching. I know it's making a difference in the lives of your students.